marketplace behavior says millennials not big fans of credit. And we could go into the reasons for that, but that's really not the topic. I think the point I want to make is that credit impacts more than just dollars in the marketplace. That whether, again, go to set aside personal feelings of how that number is arrived at or what its real value is, you have to have credit, especially in America, because America has a completely different viewpoint toward credit than the rest of the world. Right? We are much freer. We leverage credit to make purchases more than the rest of the world does. Credit score has for a larger reach here than it does the rest of the world. Uh, so regardless of whether or not you have a generation of people that believe credit is a good thing or a bad thing, the fact is that it is a part of life in America, and it impacts more than just how much you're going to pay for something. That you want to get an apartment, they're gonna check your credit. You need to turn utilities on in that apartment, they're going to check your credit. There are certain jobs in this country
Hmm.
that, and pick one that most people I don't necessarily know or would draw the correlation. You want to go work in a bank and be a bank teller, they're going to check your credit. Because, again, right, wrong, or indifferent, if that number is too low, they believe you are potentially going to steal money from them. So they don't want to give you access to that money. Right? If you're in the military and you want to get a certain security clearance, your credit impacts your ability to do that. So aside from the viewpoint of, oh, I'm just not going to buy stuff, I don't believe in credit, that's great. And more power to you if you can live your life like a one percenter and be cash flush and make every purchase that you ever want to with cash. You're still going to need credit and need to be mindful of credit if you ever want to own a home or get the job that you really want. And I don't think people completely understand the impact that their credit score has on their overall life. So we kind of touched on how people can improve their credit. We talked about checking their credit, and I want to back up and talk about asking for your credit report does not hurt your credit.
That's right.
Right? So you asking for it is still an inquiry, just like if me as a lender were to ask for it. But the difference is when you ask for it, it's what they call a soft inquiry versus me, the lender, asking for it as a hard inquiry. So you asking has no impact to your credit score whatsoever. And and I guess if we're on inquiries for a minute, a lot of people think that having your credit pulled because it's an inquiry hurts your credit. And the real answer is yes, there is an impact to your credit if someone is if a lender, a whether that be a bank to buy a car or a credit card company looking to issue you a credit line, points are deducted from your score for an inquiry, somewhere between 3 and 5, right? Based on which credit bureau it is, it's 3 to 5 points. It is negligible to your credit score. If you are one of the people out there that believes I can't have my credit run because inquiries are going to destroy my credit, it's not. It is a minimal. That does not mean go out and apply for credit for everything, because 3 to 5 per inquiry could compound and hurt you. But inquiries on their own do not hurt your credit score. Um, so it looks like there was a question on savings. And I know that is something that you are a big proponent of. So, how can someone optimize a savings plan, Austin?
Well, I think number one, you got to take advantage if you're working for an employer and they offer some sort of 401k matching or something to that effect. that's free money. So at least put in enough to where you can get that match. Prior to that, if you're on like a high deductible health plan, even before you would want to put stuff in a 401k, you'd probably want to invest money into a health savings account, because you end up getting a triple tax savings on that. The money's tax deductible, it grows tax free, and you can withdraw it without penalty. So that's probably one of the best investment vehicles that there really is. And then I guess also the concept of paying yourself first. And I don't know that everybody really understands what that is. So basically, whenever your paycheck comes in, out of that paycheck, you take a certain percentage, 5, 10%, 15%, and that money just automatically goes to either a savings account or an investment account. Um, so once it's kind of hard to get started doing it if you're used to, a certain income coming in. But once you do get started, the money kind of just funnels into these accounts, and it gets easier. So what I think one of the ways that probably I would recommend doing it is whenever you get your annual raise each year, just funnel that money into your paying yourself account.
So there's what's it, the 70/20/10? Is that the program that seems to be the one that gets promoted the most, right? The
Yeah.
10% toward savings, 20% toward the stuff that you want to do, and the 70% to the stuff that you
Towards the
need to
needs.
do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's probably a pretty easy formula to follow. I don't know that. I guess if you start early enough, 70/20/10 will probably set you on your way. And we don't do a good job of saving anyway, right? The Fed released a study: 80% of Americans, if faced with an emergency expense of $600 or more, couldn't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is that in common terms? It means that 80% of Americans don't have $600 in their savings account.
Yep.
Right? We're an immediate gratification society. We do not save well. Uh, so if I guess starting with a number like 10% and putting that in the bank at least gets you on the road to that. I don't know that 70/20/10 at this point in my life would get me a savings account worth anything. uh, but the numbers make sense, right? 70% of what you make goes toward paying for your car, paying for your gas, paying for your house. 20% to go and just have a good time with, setting aside 10. I think if I were giving advice to somebody, I'd probably flip the 20 and 10 number if you were looking for long-term success with that.
Mm-hmm.
But probably easier to swallow, especially for us as a society, that the smaller number is going to save for a rainy day, and the 20% is going to have a good time.
Yeah. I think one of the maybe unspoken things about, that stat that you just mentioned with this, not being able to afford a $600 expense is kind of the interconnectedness of financial health and then mental health. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think you did a blog on that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I did.
And
Um,
I thought we may have turned part of that into a video at one point, but I and I'm probably going to misquote it, but I think you had one of the stats in there had something to do with the it referenced the fact most arguments in a marriage revolve around money. Most people worry about money more than anything else.
more than
So
anything.
when
Hmm.
you're drawing that connection between financial health and mental health, right? The stresses that we tend to focus on money, right? The burden, but the weight of bills, the weight of an unexpected expense, and what that can do to your stress levels, which we know increase stress, especially if you don't deal with stress well, what that does to somebody's mental and emotional well-being. But I think the fact that, again, most arguments in a marriage around money, right? We know marriages in America end in divorce 50% of the time, and if the majority of arguments within a marriage are about money, then the correlation is most divorces occur because of money, right? If you just draw that line and go, if that's what you fight about the most, and 50% of divorces marriages end in a divorce, then people are getting divorced because they can't come to terms on finances, either the stresses associated with finances or something of that nature. Um,
Yeah, and I mean there is a weight of, I think you said it when we were talking offline, but this idea of having to rob Peter to pay Paul. I had somebody tell me that in court yesterday. They were like, yeah, one bad thing happened, and then things spiral out of control, and then next thing you know, you're just so far behind you can't get caught back up. And then you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and then the stress gets added to it because you're not being able to meet your needs basically.
so you talked about having somebody say that to you in court yesterday, and I think that's a good segue to the next question. So, what happens if somebody doesn't show up in court because they're being
Yeah,
sued by a debtor or by a creditor?
sure. So basically, what would happen is a default judgment would get entered. That's essentially just a finding by the court that the money's owed. And then the creditor is probably going to take collection actions such as garnishing your wages or your bank accounts. And that's what I'm talking about when things start to spiral out of control. If you don't communicate with your creditors, things just get worse. So instead of having a full paycheck, now you have 75% of a paycheck. And then the bills just compile and compile and compile.
Yeah. So, when you say default judgment and that being a ruling in the court, I guess the plain language of that is if you get sued and you don't show up, the person suing you wins. No questions asked. Doesn't matter if they were right or wrong. You didn't show up. They did. Therefore, you lose in the eyes of the court. Um, and I think it's important, especially with the fact that you and I both come from that side of this industry in the business world. And I think when we started this, what was it, 70% of all of the cases when we looked at the stats in of civil action regarding creditors suing debtors in the state of Virginia end in default judgment.
Yeah, it's a high number and it keeps going up outside of the landlord tenant because people show up for landlord tenant cases.
Yeah, no,
But
no,
otherwise, just general creditors, yeah, it's nobody shows up.
yeah, and I think that it's important, and I understand why they don't show up. Right? It's court's an intimidating thing. I got sued. That's scary. I don't want to go into a courthouse. I'll just put my head in the sand and hope
Hmm.
nothing happens. I don't think people understand. By not showing up, you lose, and you go to court 4 out of 5 days a week, right? The reality is that that is a side of the credit debtor relationship, right? That has to happen. People aren't going to pay the bills. The creditors are going to use the court system to try to collect on those bills. You're not looking to stand in front of the judge and get that default judgment or even and I'll say this as the guy who's not the lawyer, right? I know you as a lawyer, if in front of the judge you want to make the case and you want to win, but ultimately you would much rather have somebody communicate with you before court,
Hmm.
before it ever reaching that point. But even if it does get to that point, show up at the courthouse and meet with you so that you can stand in front of the judge and say, we've worked something out so that you can save that. I'm going to take it via garnishment. And now instead of you making either what your original monthly payment was or even a negotiated lower monthly payment, I'm going to take 25% of your paycheck and put you in a worse financial position than what you were. And it all could be
Hmm.
avoided just by communicating with you or the collector before it ever even made it to your department. Right. And again, I think it's a missing component from an education standpoint that we don't teach people what may happen and how to avoid those things. And where having been on that side of it, we're not evil. We're, right? We're not looking to beat people over the head. You entered into an agreement. Yes, we want to get paid as the lender or the holder of the credit grantor. But ultimately, we want to do it in a way that retains you as a consumer, right? There's no benefit to taking you to court, suing you, and taking 25% of your paycheck. There is a benefit to figuring out a solution. How can you pay me of your own accord? Because this may just be a short-term problem. You get back on your feet and I took care of you and did the right thing and you felt good about it. You now come back to me as a customer again. I'd much rather solve the problem that way than leverage the courts and take it directly out of your paycheck. So, what else do we have? Gotta love the fact that all the questions were preloaded questions.
So I'm going to throw something out. I know we were talking about, one of the campaigns that we wanted to start was the Get Stacked campaign. So do you want to go over maybe the importance of like $1,000 emergency savings fund and how people might get started on that?
Yeah, I think we touched on how to optimize savings, and I think when we talk about, and just I guess give some context, right? You and I have had discussions wanting to run a program around if $600 is the current number that most Americans don't have, and I think we landed on the 1,000 because we looked at a study that said as a baseline that was the number that you should have, right? At
Yeah,
minimum $1,000 in your
very
savings
minimum.
account. So get stacked, $1,000 is stacked. We're young and hip. Okay, you are. I'm old. Whatever. Uh, the 70-20-10 and talking about answering that question of how do you optimize the savings plan kind of leads into that, but it's important to recognize that that is unique to every individual, right? The optimal savings plan or financial plan is going to vary based on each person. I think the 10% starting point in the pay yourself commentary is the best way to get started toward that. $1,000 in a savings account, again, you're $400 more than what the current number most Americans don't have. I would venture to say $1,000 in a general sense adds a layer of security as a number against what most emergency expenses for the average American might be. You're
Hmm.
usually talking a car repair or your refrigerator died and you're needing to replace a refrigerator. Those would be the things that I think are being referenced in emergency expense. And $1,000 is going to cover a lot of those
Yeah.
without that rob Peter to pay Paul scenario coming into play. Um, I think that ties into one of the things you and I wanted to do, which was offering up financial coaching services, not financial planning services, financial coaching services. Want to make sure that people heard that clearly if you're listening to this live or watching it on a replay. Uh, and financial coaching is just that. It's not. We're not going to sit down and tell you what to do with your money. We would help you figure out how to do. You figure out how to do things with your money, right? Does the 70-20-10 work for you, or is there a better number that works for you on how that gets distributed? It's more a support and encouragement, evaluate the situation and help guide you than it is telling you put your money in this or go invest in that. Um, and again, when we talk about that from a charity standpoint, when we looked at financial coaching, the would we see $300 to $400 per session
Right.
was
Per
kind of
session. Yeah.
the running cost associated with a financial coach. So wanting to be able to take these things that there there is usually a pretty high cost associated with and present that to this community either at a low or no cost option. So I know that we've had meetings with other charities. We've met with some of the local credit unions. We've had discussions with a bunch of different places as you've been out, and you are probably, because of your job, you're in court across most of the cities in the Hampton Roads area. What's some of the feedback that you've gotten, if any, on what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I know that a lot of the local attorneys and the professionals, the judges, the legal aid folks as well, they're all interested in kind of our mission because a lot of the things that they see are the people that are coming to them kind of in, already behind the eight ball. So I think we fill a pretty good gap as far as helping out those individuals. Obviously, we're not going to be representing them as counsel or anything like that. But like you said, just trying to be a guideway and show them a way to get out of the current situation that they're in. Um, that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I think you're probably on the same wavelength on that.
Yep. Um, I do I do think it's funny that we started this and we talked about how did this come to be, that it started as a business idea, right? You and I having discussion of what could the proverbial side hustle be, and how that turns into a no, we'll just start a charity. Well, forget business. We'll just do it as a charity.
Yeah. We'll just
That'll
have
work
some
out
fun
for
with
us.
that.
But
And here we are.
that's
10
right.
o'clock
Here we
on.
and I guess I do want to point out it is a charity, right? We are a 501c3. You know, we don't right now it's you and I and a couple other people that do some stuff kind of on the in the background for us. Do want to shout out your dad, who is our biggest
Go
volunteer
down.
on getting stuff done for us. So Ted, if you are watching, you are appreciated, my man. But we live and die by generosity, right? It's your generosity in time and dollars out of your pocket at this point. It sounds kind of weird for me to say my own generosity, but it's time. I'm volunteering time. I put money in, you put money in. Again, your dad has done a tremendous amount of stuff for us. There are people that are contributing, and it's only through generosity that we're able to make this happen. All of the things we're doing do have a cost associated with them, but and we're not pulling in any kind of revenue stream at this point. So just bear in mind that we are a charity. We live and die by donations and people's generosity, whether that's our own or others. I figured I'd put that out there. Can't say it enough. We are in that time of year.
Look, I mean, I think we've done good for being around for just a year or so with what we've accomplished, right? I mean, over 3,000 unique viewers to the website. A lot of them on the blog post learning about credit, learning about taxes, learning about savings and things like that. So I think the need is definitely there. It's just how do we scale?
Yeah, and especially for two guys that have no background in a nonprofit at all, right?
Yeah.
This is, I guess, pull the curtain back, and I've shared this with you. Whereas I walked into it going, I know an awful lot about business, and I could run a company. I can do that. I'll be all right. No. I'm trying to figure this out as we go, and I've learned that it's not a one-to-one relationship, right? A nonprofit functions completely different than a company does. Some of the structure is the same, and some of the things you have to consider, right? That when we're spending money on an advertisement on Facebook to promote an event like this, right? That's a one-to-one. The difference being us figuring out how we're going to pay for it versus a company having a budget for it and a revenue stream to support it. But some of the other stuff, our product is a concept. It's a concept that was designed to be given away. It was never designed to generate an income. So being creative in that sense has been a unique challenge, I know, for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So I think we have run through everything we had preloaded as questions. It does not look like there's been anything added in the comments.
Okay.
So anything you have in closing that you'd like to
I
offer
don't
up?
think so. Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to reach out to us, feel free. Um, we have our website. We have a contact me on there. Um, yeah, just let us know what you want to see, what you need help with, and that's what we're here for.
Yep. So as Austin said, we do. You can reach us via the website through the contact me form on the website, which again is financialfoundationsofvirginia.org. You can communicate with us directly through the Facebook page, which you are watching this on currently. We also have the Instagram associated with this Facebook page, which is FFoVA 23. You can comment or reach out to us there. Uh, I don't know. We do have a LinkedIn profile. I don't know that that necessarily is a way that a whole lot of people that would be watching here would be communicating, but it is there. It is a line of communication. Um, but either, yeah, provide us feedback. What is it that you would like to see us add? What is something you would like to see a blog post on? Uh, or just any kind of, if you have interest in volunteering, trying to offer some kind of support, we'd love to hear from you. So anyway, we want to hear from you, get feedback on what you thought of this. If you'd like to see us do more things like this, what is it you would like to see us do going forward? But we appreciate you watching. Austin, I appreciate you taking time out this evening to do this with me. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks.